have you ever noticed, like, during solar flares, do you track any of those, or like certain planetary or intergalactic or solar activity can really dysregulate us? Have you ever tracked any of that?
Don't track it. What'll happen is I will wake up and I will feel a shift, or I will notice a shift in the animals around me. I definitely feel planetary energies very strongly. I know that one of the things I do is work with ley lines. And
Okay.
so, because I can go to a place, I can drive across a ley line and all of the hair on my body, like, like I'll feel it and then I'll just start getting a stream of information. So I'll get the information, which is how a lot of my learning has come. I will get an information download and then I will go and check it, you know? So if
Okay.
I'm feeling that energy, and it'll feel big, I'll feel like, wow, something big is coming to the planet right now. And then I'll go look up, what is the solar activity or what are the planetary alignments? I don't follow that stuff much. I mostly use it to confirm what I'm sensing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's a great way of using it.
Yeah,
Because then you know you're not using it to cause something, which is always the argument with it. So it's
yeah,
like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And
yeah,
honestly, astrology has always been something I've used later on to understand what happened and what had occurred and what had unraveled.
right.
But now I use it to understand what's going on currently, or in the future to anticipate what kind of I don't know, jacket or sweater to wear to prepare. So
Right. uh,
just like the
Yeah,
weather. And
yeah.
it does change like the weather. Yeah. So yeah, that's why I'm so curious. What when you
Because I walked in at age 11.
okay.
Something else about me. Anything that I talk about, anything that I teach is not something that I'm teaching that I've read and not tried, or like I didn't know anything about walk-ins. It was very hard when I first found out about it to even find information on it. And so there may be things that I say to you about walk-ins that other people say, don't say about it. I've had more than one walk-in. Um, and that's not, I mean, I've witnessed it.
Okay.
So I walked in at age 11. And that was, I grew from that point, I'm in Saudi Arabia.
When I saw you, I was like, this woman has to have some Leo in her chart. Look at that hair. And I looked at your chart. I'm like, you are a Scorpio. However, your rising is in Leo. And I'm like, that
Yeah.
makes sense. And you know about the rising sign? How
I
is
don't
there?
know very much at all about astrology because I didn't know how much of that applied to me. It's like I know it applies to my body. Like I know for me, that I chose this specific bloodline and that we are choosing these bloodlines with generational trauma, DNA trauma, generational curses, bindings, all of that kind of stuff. We choose those because we know we can transform them. And we are here at this is a very auspicious time. I mean, anybody that does this type of work has to know we are here at an auspicious time on earth, right? We are here for a transformation, the likes of which hasn't happened at any time before. People want to talk about the Kali Yuga ending, right? And they talk about the 26,000 year cycles. And I can see that. And I realize what they're saying about it. But this is such a massive shift. And it's almost like it's all hands on deck. So where there have been a lot of, periods maybe where the creator gods, right, have not necessarily come back. And I don't say that, again, I don't say it in a hierarchical way. They're just different kinds of beings. And so these beings that can be one being and many, like they can project their consciousness into, one place and many places all at once, like without limit. And just like, when we hear about seraphim being 1 in 12, they can project their consciousness into up to this many in any dimension or timeline or whatever. But it feels like it's almost like, because I look at what I do, I look at my sessions, how I've learned. We don't have mystery schools like we used to.
Yeah.
I've seen past lives where I have gone from this teacher to this one, to this one, to this one, to this one, right? Almost like gathering the specialties. This lifetime, I feel like I've had to piecemeal, I
Yeah.
go and learn about energies and frequencies from this person, and I learn about this from and this technique and this,
Yeah.
so
Do you
on.
think that's done on purpose to fragment us more so that we're not, embodied as much? Our soul is fragmented. So like mystery schools were like an order to empower us as
Right,
individuals, right? And in this day
right.
and age of the like mind control system where we're
Oh,
not allowed to think for ourselves or to be sovereign or embodied as much. It's like, well, we are, I mean, we have the free will, but we're just not given the tools unless we seek them out, unless we're very individuated to the point of understanding what that means and
I
seeking
feel
them.
like we are at the peak of mind control. I feel like mind control has been here for quite some time, but it has never been projected at this level. Like I feel that fully.
Really? Okay.
Mm, And
Do you think it's going to get worse or do you think it's going to get better?
no, I think it's getting better.
Okay.
So what I see, and I get that there's so much darkness, but what I see is we are, the pendulum always has to swing back the other way. And I see us on the swing now toward the light. And it's like, as we're swinging, we're pulling out of all this darkness. But, we have to witness the darkness on our way through. So no, I believe it's going to get a lot better.
Okay.
Uh, we have people waking up to things in ways that I wouldn't have fathomed 5 years ago. Right?
Yeah.
All of the plague, you know, what the plague did, how many folks woke up around that. You look at the war energy in the collective and how the collective is looking at these manufactured wars that are really more of a mass ritual, right?
Oh
I know
yeah.
you I know you know this
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
Uh, Hunger Games is disclosure style.
Oh yeah.
So so they have not anticipated, even with all their stolen technology to do so, they've not anticipated the um amount, the strength of what these things, it's like everything's backfiring on them. The controllers, no matter what they do, it backfires on them. And every time it backfires on them, things get more light. And the more light that comes to Earth, the less the darkness can hide. I mean, things are so right in our face now. That's why I say, like, if you're not waking up, if you're not seeing what's going on, you're trying not to see, right?
Oh, yeah.
Be- Because it is so blatant right in our faces. So,
But people are really good at gaslighting themselves. You know, they do it all the time in their relationships and you know, and disempowerment, because sometimes it's easier to stay small than it is to take responsibility for what you're given. So I feel like that's definitely a trajectory that people like to take. Um,
yeah, this is also programming though.
yeah,
Like when you
absolutely.
talk about disempowered relationships, um, soap operas,
Hmm.
romance movies, you know what I mean? Like think about how our younger generations have been programmed to accept less and less and less and less,
Yep. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um,
And it's blasted at them through their music, through what they're
through
watching, through
everything.
film, media.
Yeah.
Media is king, right? In our,
Oh my
in
God.
in how we're
Yeah.
learning these days, how we're growing up in
Yeah.
society. So
And it's interesting because, you know, I don't know how old you are, but you know, I have the memory of we now return you to your regular programming,
oh yeah,
right?
I grew up with that, yeah.
Right? And so right in our faces. Here's what's happening to you. And we're like, more please, right? So
After a quick commercial break to program you what to eat and buy, now I'll get
right,
programmed in what to
right.
think.
Go out and put this garbage into your body. All right, you know, yeah. So so it really is just a
But now it's integrated
gr-
more into the everyday. You can't even
yeah,
tell the difference between reality
groom,
and programming anymore.
grooming, right? Like grooming a whole society, a whole global community has been groomed.
Mhm.
When you talk about the grooming of MK Ultra and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it is it is interesting to witness how many things backfire now, you know? Um,
Do you think
and
that's
I
why
do,
a lot of us came in to help counteract all of that?
oh man, there's a lot of reasons a lot of us came in. When I say it's all hands on deck, you know, someone will say, oh, your purpose is this, your purpose is that. I think we are multi-purpose beings, right?
We're
So
multidimensional, so that makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, we're multi-dimensional. We're also multi-purpose. So we are coming down here as conduits for the light, the power, the awakening, the healing, the wisdom, the peace, the grace, the compassion, the unconditional love of the creator to flow through us into this earth that has been separated from love. And I don't mean, you know, not that the earth has been completely separated from love, but this is macrocosm and microcosm. This is coming through right now. I haven't thought about this in quite this way before. So all of us are here to come back to wholeness. All of us are here to come back to the truth that we are love, right? And we have been purposely fragmented. We have been purposely enmeshed with one another because it becomes more difficult to collect all your parts, to bring back all of your fragments. If you and I are enmeshed, that becomes more difficult, right? Because, and it becomes more difficult to even shed our traumas. Because if you and I are enmeshed, I can't shed your trauma. I'll still have it in my field, but I can't shed your trauma.
Mm.
So in order for me to get that trauma out of my field, I have to recognize the fact, oh, we're enmeshed. and give you back your life force and take my life force back. And I'll see it when I am clearing enmeshment. I will see it as these literal like threads or roots being pulled out of people.
Mm.
And then I will watch their tapestry, their light body, like all these dark threads being pulled out of their light body, being pulled out of the tapestry, and then everything reordering. And even the way I learned about enmeshment was so interesting. I was learning SRT, which is spiritual response technique. I don't know if you know about it, but it
No, I
uses
don't.
pendulums, it uses charts.
Okay.
I got to learn it and master it, and it's one of the things my soul took away. It's like, you don't need charts. I don't want you using a pendulum. You know, you need to know that your charts and all of your diagnostic tools are in this being. You know, it's your soul and your being. Bring them together. And but the way that I found out about it is because the gal that was teaching it, who is amazing, but the gal that was teaching it kept being so frustrated because my mother would have like half my life force, and we'd clear her out, and then the next time we'd come to class, there she is again. And I'm estranged from my parents, and I don't have any kind of ill will toward them. I love them. I pray for them. I send them good energy, all these kind of things. But um, I was very like, I would be so irritated with her. Oh, she's got my life force again, right? I'd be really
Yeah.
irritated.
You and your sister also, they you both had that. Okay, so you both had that Scorpio on your IC, which is that Scorpio at the seat of the soul, which is bringing in family, like the ancestral family karma. So it's
Right.
like almost like you kind of maybe your mom kept asking you maybe to do something for her, and then maybe you did it.
No,
Did you draw boundaries?
no. So
Okay.
what happened is so I learned about energy from there. I learned about people being able to take your life force. Like that was part of my mystery. It was my piecemeal mystery school, right? So
Oh
that was
yeah.
part of my piecemeal mystery school. But what happened is I journeyed one day, because I'm also shamanically trained. That's how I learned to journey. But I had part of that taken away too, because I was taught to journey through holes in the ground. So, you know, it's like shamanically, you'll journey through a cave, I used to journey through a stump. And that was taken away because I realized I was having attachments. Like, why am I coming back with attachments? And so Spirit taught me to, our hearts are stargates. And so Spirit taught me to only go through the heart, which is a stargate. So I journeyed through my heart, I journeyed through the stargate, and I saw my mother literally had my back. Like my back had been Frankensteined onto my mother.
Hmm.
And so, and so, we were in a void. We were in this big white void. And I called my back from her. Like I called my material, my actual material back from her. And I gave her material back. And we had done, it with, Jan had done it with her pendulum and her charts, however many times. But I recognized that I needed to see that beings were being enmeshed.
Hmm.
And so I called that back. And as I did, that was the first time I saw all of this material like unraveling. And I didn't have that issue again.
Hmm.
And so, and I was really, this was right before the, this was winter solstice. And prior, and so learning about how somebody's energy in your field, if somebody hasn't crossed and their energy's in your field, whatever they carried in their field, um, you have and you can't transform. And so I was having suicidal ideations. I told you about her when she was 15. I
Wow.
had no reason at all. And when I say suicidal ideations, I would be driving down the street, I would see a high building, and I'd think, I need to go jump off that building. Like, what? You know, I have a really beautiful life. There's nothing in me that should want to go jump off a building. But I would have these thoughts coming, and
Wow.
I was feeling like a crazy person, like, why am
Yeah.
I? And had depression. I had never been depressed. Had all of these things, thoughts, like addictive kind of thoughts. And I don't have any kind of addiction. If something like tendencies, it which is surprising coming through this particular bloodline. But if there's something that I realize or recognize isn't good for me, I'm able just to stop it. No big deal, no withdrawal, nothing. And all of a sudden, I'm having these addictive thoughts. And so she showed up as a back problem. She was on the left side of my body, which is other people's energy. She was on my left lower back to where I couldn't hardly walk.
Mm.
And it was, this was 2020. This was Christmas, actually, of 2020. And so there was nobody open. I couldn't go to a chiropractor or anything because it was holidays. And I went to see an acupuncturist. And when I walked into the acupuncturist, I'd never been to an acupuncturist, and she was part of my shamanic circle. She's amazing, but I'd never been to one. And so I went in and I sat on the table, waiting for her. And she steps away from me, goes into the corner and starts shaking a rattle. And I'm like, all right, I don't know what acupuncture is. Okay. And she says, and I'm walking in there with my knees together, like my lower back so messed up. And she said, how do you feel now? And I looked at her and I'm like, the same. And she looks quick at the window and she goes, that's because it's still here. And she starts shaking a rattle again. She says, I need you to lie down. I lie down. And as I lie down, I get whispered in my ear, portal. And I say to her with an expletive in front of it, I said, is there a fecking portal under my house? Right. And because what I saw looked like gates of hell under my house, and we had only moved there a year before.
Oh, wow.
And I had had so many accidents at this house. Like, I got concussed. I had a broken wrist, like in the year that I was there. And so, like, just really strange things that wouldn't have happened. And she said, there's a portal under your house bigger than your house, and there's a portal in you. So I'm like, dang it. And I didn't know anything. This is what I'm saying. Everything's been an initiation. I didn't learn
Yeah.
about portals because I read, oh, portals, that sounds like an interesting thing. I learned about portals because I had a big one under my house. I had one in my body. So she referred me to Jan. She's like, I need you to go see Jan. And so I did. And I hobbled toward that chair. And as soon as she crossed my sister, I was able to stand up and walk away. Back
Oh,
problem. And so that was 2020. Sorry for the flip, the sorry for time traveling backwards. 2021, I went to Journey, and I went to Journey as I always had. I hadn't been taught, I didn't know yet about my heart being a stargate. I went to run and jump into my stump, and instead it put me through the capstone of a pyramid. And I went through the capstone of a pyramid, and I slid down this into this chamber. And I had been asking and asking and asking, show me my truth, show me who I am. Because I'd had several different readings, and they would all say these things that honestly would make me, it was a little overwhelming. because they'd say, oh, wow, you're this, you're that, you're, do you have any idea who you are and what you're here to do? And I'm like, not a one, you know, and it would just overwhelm me because I thought, how am I supposed to do any of this stuff that people have predicted I'm to do when I don't even know who I am or what I am? And I knew about the walk-in. I knew about the first walk-in at age 11,
Which
but
we
I
have yet
didn't,
to talk about. We still have to talk about that.
yeah,
After the story, we want to talk about that.
I knew that I had walked into this body at age 11. And that was another thing. It came after my first big shamanic clearing with the woman who trained me. I lucked into this beautiful shamanic circle when I moved to Eugene, Oregon, of wise women. When you talk about women and the divine feminine, these were all like 70s and 80s, 70 and 80-year-old women.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so I was trained by, a beautiful woman named Kruna. And after the first session that she did, where she really cleared a bunch of stuff for me, um, I heard the words walk in. And I asked her, am I a walk in? And she said, yes. And she said, age 11. And she said, I don't know what that means. And as soon as she said 11, it made sense to me because I'm born at 11/11 in the 11th month. 11s are a big deal. Right now, I live on the 11th mile of a highway. My house sold before we bought this house. My house sold on 4/11 for $11,000 over asking. I mean, 11 is kind of a thing, right? So when she said 11, it resonated. And I realize now that's one of those things where I'm like, I'm taking 11s with me, whatever it is that we're going to put in our bag of tricks to help us wake up. But I'd really wanted to know who I was. And so I slide down into this chamber and it is packed full of beings, which I believe were me, right? All these different stations of my identity. And I see this altar in the center of the chamber. And I know that I'm to go lie on this altar. And so I do. I go over there, I lie down on the altar, and something has me like sit up and look over the sides before I lie back down. And there's these huge suns like carved into the sides of both altars. There's suns. And so I thought, okay, because I had been taught to notice what you notice, like notice as much as you can, as much detail as you can, because I know that this is how our souls communicate with us when we're in non-ordinary reality. They're trying to give us as much information as they can through the visuals, through the sounds, through whatever it is they're speaking to us. And so I lied there on that altar and I see this hand above me with a golden dagger. And this hand, and I don't see it attached to anyone, just a hand and a golden dagger. And the dagger comes down. And as it does, I look and I'm holding this gold egg. And as this dagger hits this gold egg, I burst into this gold dragon,
Oh, I
which
love
sounds like, a crazy thing. This is why I don't watch TV, by the way,
it. You don't
because
need to.
TV cannot TV cannot compete with non-ordinary reality. But I burst into this dragon, and all of a sudden, I am beneath Notre Dame. And I'm beneath Notre Dame. I know it's Notre Dame. And I just start telling he was my boyfriend at that time, my husband. I start telling him what I'm witnessing. He had the foresight to document everything. Like he would document everything that would come through me in streams of consciousness. He would type into notes.
Oh, good man.
Yeah. So I'm under Notre Dame. Floor is cobbled, walls are cobbled, curved cobbled ceiling. And I see these men and they are like mortar and pestle combining something, and they're all in black, which I know is meant to show me, these aren't light beings. And this was my first time remote viewing, and I didn't mean to do it. And the reason I know I remote viewed is because when I started telling Travis what was happening, they turned around and looked at me.
Oh, oh, wow.
And I said, they are combining materials. They are combining body parts. They are combining materials of high beings. They are using them in satanic ritual. And then I started getting flashes
Oh my God, I'm getting so
of,
many shivers.
yeah, started getting flashes of the Arc de Triomphe, Cleopatra's Needle, which I didn't even know what it was, Caligula's obelisk, the Washington Monument. I started seeing all of these big places where people go and put their energy. They go and admire them. They look at
Wow.
them, put their energy, right? And I could see what they were doing was they were combining materials, enmeshing beings, reversing their energy via satanic ritual, and poisoning the ley lines in these areas, right? So that when people would go and look at the Arc de Triomphe and go, oh, what an amazing arc, or whatever, they're putting their appreciation, they're putting their admiration into
Wow. Yeah, they're
satanic
putting
energy.
their energy. They're planting their energy, feeding the machine here.
Yeah,
Wow.
without recognizing it, right? So I see them doing it, and I'm speaking very loud, because I am on my knees. I'm on my knees on a bed, on our bed, because I started lying down when I did this journey, and it was so much that I end up on my knees. And it's the first time that with my eyes open, I'm seeing like I'm in a different place. As soon as I started like loudly telling him this is what's happening, these guys turn and they look at me, and they look at me and there's shock on their face, and then they start like scatter, like pushing to get out. And when they did that, I looked down at myself because I wondered, why are they running? And when I looked down at myself, I was a sun, like an sun.
Oh,
And I told Travis, I said, I'm a son. I'm a son of God. We are sons of God. Like I realized it was an sun,
wow.
right? So even when they talk, I mean, we're all sons and daughters of God, right? We all come from the same creator. But I'm like, oh my gosh, like they invert so many things, they twist so
Yes.
many things. We're
Yes.
actual sons, right? And so yeah, then I got this, just this huge download about that, like what they were doing. The Bible was a binding. I'm like, oh my gosh, they have bound these beings that are even talked about, spoken about in the Bible. They have bound them to this doctrine. They have bound them to these satanic rituals that are contained in this doctrine.
Yes.
You see the veneration of bones, which I didn't even know at the time they did, right?
Oh,
Why have they kept these bones? Why have they kept these bones of these saints and so forth?
oh my goodness. And the body
They
part. Yeah.
they have kept them in order to enmesh them, because then when all hands on deck get here, they're like, I gotta go get this part there and that part there, if they wake up to it, right? If they even recognize what's transpired. So I saw that they were doing that, and I flipped it. So I saw they were doing that. And then it was like a week later that I saw my mother had my actual back. And so I started at that point asking, so this was 12/21 of 21. So I get into 2022 at that point, and I was told to journey every day of Feb of 22. And every day I would get either the day before or the day of, I would get almost like coordinates of where I was to go. And like I was sent to the unholy trinity, which is City of London, Vatican, Washington, D.C. And so I was sent to the Vatican first. And when I would show up in these journeys, there were massive amounts of beings there. So all of these beings there working together. And I had been asking, show me my truth, show me what I'm here to do. And I believed that I was shown in this month because I saw the big shifts. I saw what was happening, you know, to the planet dimensionally. I saw false holograms over so many things.
Oh,
The
yeah.
reflecting pool in Washington, D.C., I saw was blood. It was just full on blood. So what is Washington, D.C.? It's war, right?
Oh, yeah.
City of London is money. So we got war, we got money, and then we have religion with the Vatican, unholy trinity. And I was sent to each of these places. And so, you know, I would go to these places, and then that's when I would learn about these things. This is what I say, like I would experience things and then go, why is that? I didn't find Ascension Glossary at all until I started, because I'm like, sun dragon, as you know, because
Yeah, that's how we come across. That's how we all find Ascension Glossary, right?
right, sun
Like, what the
dragon,
heck is that?
yeah, no sun dragon comes up, but then solar dragon comes up and all these other things. And so that's what I would do. And not that I, you know, like I don't really, I think everybody that I have encountered, like as far as or everything, modalities or whatever, I can't tell you that I've found anything where I've got like, this is the absolute truth, everything. So I'm not
Yeah.
saying that I agree with everything on there, but I'm saying that I realize our souls, once we have our discernment solid, you know, our souls can lead us to a a source that is 90% BS and show us how to extract the 10% truth. Like once you have your discernment, right?
Yeah. That's
So,
kind of necessary these days. Yeah.
yeah, right. And I don't think people, like, I know there's some people that are out there actively, purposely promoting false information. But I think a
Well,
lot of
they believe it's real though. That's the thing
yeah,
is,
well, no, but I mean, I know there are people that know that what they're promoting is not real, et cetera, et cetera. But I know that the vast majority are what you just said. They are, you know, they're getting these downloads, they're channeling this person or that person, and they're like, oh, I know this is, you know, I don't channel beings. So I think you asked me something about guides. I have been shown, like, if you are an aspect of the creator, right? If I'm an aspect of the creator, why do I need to bring anything into my channel between the creator and I in order to guide me or give me information? It doesn't make sense.
yeah, beautifully
And
said.
yeah, when you see the connection and you see this beautiful light between you and the creator, then start sliding in guides. What does that do? It filters the light of creation. It filters the information, the wisdom, the healing, everything through the all these other beings. Why do you need that? I don't know why you would. So
Well,
I don't
talk to me a little bit then about the whole walk-in the whole walk-in idea, phenomenon, what it is, how you feel it happened to you, when it happened to you. Maybe tell us a little bit, take us, you know, from then into then how you got there now, and then how you feel that compares with this information.
okay. So the walk-in, the first time I knew about the walk-in I mentioned earlier with Karuna, where I just heard walk-in. And I was being I had just gotten my first big shamanic clearing. It was like a 3-hour empowerment ceremony she did. And I had to clear a lot of stuff, by the way, after every training, I'm like, oh man. And so then I have to go back and, undo this or that. But I know that I got what I was meant to get from anybody that I've learned from, in my piecemeal, my piecemeal mystery school. So I knew about the 11-year-old, and so or walk in, and so I tried to look it up, and they're like, sometimes it can happen as a, during a traumatic thing, someone will decide to leave their body. And I realized at age 11, my sister, who was the closest thing that felt like home to me, for much of this. And I don't think that's by mistake either. I believe that when we walk in, we come in either with beings that come into animal form, or other humans. They'll step into another human vessel, like we'll walk in together, we'll walk in groups or whatever. But I realized that was the age where my sister had tried to kill herself. And so I could see that would be a traumatic incident. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I was in Saudi Arabia at that age. My dad worked for Aramco, and I didn't know anything about stargates, or planetary stargates or anything like that at the time, that I knew about or found out about this walk-in. But when I did read the little bit I could find on it that resonated, I recognized that I didn't have all my memories that I should have. That I had not really highlights. I mean, some highlights, but mainly lowlights. I had the memories of different traumas, which I think is purposeful. I think that the paradigm wants us focused. I mean, we need to know about the traumas. We need to know them and feel them in order to clear them. And I recognize that. But some beings are so buried in trauma, the chances of them coming out of that are probably slim, right? So when I started thinking about my memories, and I'm thinking, wow, why don't I have more memories? I was shown a cubicle, and I was shown a cubicle with files, and one person walking out of the cubicle and the other person walking in. And given this download of, you only get the files you need in order to complete your mission. You get the files you need in order to, like, I had the files I needed to have in order to be Holly. And it's interesting how many people from, high school years or childhood years or whatever would say to me, do you remember that time we blah, blah, blah? And I mean, not a stitch. It's like no recognition, no memory at all of this stuff. And I have a really good memory. I have a really good memory for numbers, for words, for that kind of stuff. And so that part didn't make sense. Like, how do these people remember these things I don't remember? And so I recognized then with the cubicle and all that, and I got this download that we're given, the trauma stays with the body. So we are given just what we need, and just the files that we need, in addition to what's kept in the body, to do the job of whatever personality we've walked into. So, and I see it when you ask about walk-ins and what is the purpose of them. I believe it's easier for a walk-in to awaken. I believe it's easier for a walk-in to avoid the programming, to recall higher abilities, higher information, and also to it's like jumping the turnstile at the subway, right? And I see that turnstile almost like the karmic wheel. So you are able to bypass the karmic system. Like you don't have to step into the karmic prison system. You're like jumping over the turnstile. So you're able to come. When I realized I was a walk-in, so many things that had been holding me down or holding me back, I was able just to open my hands and let them fall away. Like that stuff's not even mine. And so I went from struggling with behaviors, with patterns, with habits one day to none of that. As soon as I recognized I'm carrying around a bunch of stuff that isn't mine. And then I purposely called forward the being that was in this body prior to me. And I gave them all of their stuff back to transform, because you can't transform somebody else's information. I can't transform another soul's information. I can only transform my information.
Did something happen around that time that you remember, like a purge or an illness or something like that, that catalyzed the shift itself?
Around 11.
Yeah, around the time of the walk-in switch. Like was
So
it
it was my sister's suicide. That was so traumatic.
okay? So it was, but at the moment, do you remember the moment it happened, or was it more of like a more of a general memory of it
So
happening?
I didn't remember that exact moment, but um I do remember. So I've had more than one walk-in. And this is something that I don't know. I haven't researched since my early research. I don't know if other people talk about this, but I believe sometimes there'll be one walk-in in a body. And I believe other times it's like it's been shown to me more of a relay race. The reason I found the next walk-in is because my son on his I believe it was his 19th birthday, I was gonna get up and make him his favorite food that day, and all, we had our plans for this is how we're gonna celebrate. And he was just like, I don't want to celebrate. I don't want anything to do with my birthday, and pretty intense about it. And he had been going through some intense stuff, and so I journeyed for him. And when I journeyed for him, I was taken back to his birth. And this body died when he was born. And that's like in the medical records. So they over medicated me and ended up having to take him cesarean. The last memory I have in the body before this happened was being intubated and an anesthesiologist yelling, "She's gone stiff on me."
Wow.
So, and the thoughts of, praying that my kids would be taken care of. So when I journeyed back, and I didn't intentionally journey back to his birthday, that's where I was taken. And I saw myself standing next to the body, and I saw the body lying down and another soul next to the body. And I saw my son was still corded to this other soul, that he was corded actually to the dead body. And so I cleared this walk-in, all of her information, and I took the cord from this dead body and I connected it to me standing next to the dead body. That's how I learned about clearing the umbilicus,
Oh,
because
wow.
this is something I do when I do clearings, is I clear the umbilicus and then I reorder the family tree or the bloodline, clearing all false ancestors, clearing all false twins, cloned identities, false identities, all that kind of stuff out of the bloodline. And what I will see is just like I see the light body being reordered, I'll see the bloodline reordered. And
Wow.
you'll see the bloodline reorder, and you'll see all of this light going back through the bloodline. And once it gets back to the beginning, it bounces forward, and it bounces forward like all of these healed codes. And that's how I was taught about the umbilicus, and it transformed my son. I can't even quantify, like, his everything changed, his attitude changed. And I don't mean just that day. It shifted our relationship profoundly. And so that's when I knew about that walk-in.
Wow.
And then realized, oh, this is something that can happen more than once. And Spirit taught me how to identify walk-ins, how to see if you have a twin, how, you know, that maybe you absorbed in the womb, because that's another thing. If you were a twin and you absorb their information, you can't transform their information. And if you can't transform their information and you don't know you're enmeshed, you cannot fully embody, right?
Wow. Yes. That makes a
So
lot of sense.
yeah, so
Wow.
so
I don't
Spirit
even think
taught,
about these things, you know?
yeah. I mean, I didn't either until they happened. That's what I'm saying. This is this is how all of my this is how what I know has come to be. Um through apparently I'm a see it see it to believe it.
A school of hard knocks,
So,
right?
yeah, see it to believe it. So show me. So
Yeah.
then Spirit taught me how to identify walk-ins. And so when I knew how to identify walk-ins, I cleared the other souls that were attached to this body. And I am the fifth. This soul is the fifth walk-in.
Mm.
And it's interesting because what I would do then is I would have somebody, it's, you know, that had a, I would get confirmation either through a session with someone without saying really why I was asking something. You know, I would ask. And so Jan, the gal that taught me SRT, I asked her, what do you see around my birth? And she's like, oh, it's interesting. I see 5 souls. And she's another one that saw me as a walk-in. But she says, I see these 5 souls. And I knew that there had been 5 walk-ins.
Wow.
And so these were what she was witnessing were 5 souls pre-birth planning. And she said, you know, you walk in on an infinity wave, which I knew. And I felt like that had something to do with the 1111. And she said, I see that what you do is you choose the mother and you drop the spark off. It's like you drop off the spark and then, you know, walk in.
Wow.
And so this relay race, this, you know, I believe that these are beings that walk-ins do these. It's almost like you have a team for that also. I believe I've only been born once, and that my nature and the nature of my particular soul group is that we walk in. And so I tend to attract walk-ins. You know, I know this is one of my purposes is to awaken these beings to this, because like I said, if you don't know it, if you don't know you're enmeshed, you can't embody.
At this point, your body's very efficient, by the way. Has housed
Yeah.
5 different walk-ins.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you remember, so the dates of each time it happens, or do you have maybe a vague memory?
Well, I can ask and just be shown. Like I can
Okay.
ask. So I told you that I was concussed in 2020
Yeah. Okay.
and caught on our porch cam. You know, I was out on a wet deck in the backyard and my feet just came out from underneath me and I fell and hit the deck.
Okay.
So that's one.
Okay.
20 2022 was another. I actually had a seizure, which I've never had. I went in, I was ill, and I went into the bathroom, and I woke up with a goose egg here on my head and a goose egg here, and my back was arched. And I'm going, what just happened? I saw I was unplugged, like I was unplugged from something completely that I had been, that had an interface with me at the up to that point, that I unplugged some kind of interface to free myself from something. And I saw a soul, walk in there.
Wow.
So yeah, if I ask, I can see here are here's where.
Now, do you know, are these walk-ins part of your soul family, or do you know them, or are they part of your higher self? Like who and what are they?
So I believe that I know that I am walking in higher aspects. You are walking in higher aspects of yourself, and walking in, like you are coming back, you're coming back to wholeness. So as old timelines, as you're clearing, you talked about clearing, trauma. As you clear this trauma, and particularly if you know how to, we can rewrite timelines. People talk about the Mandela effect, right? And they're like, oh, it's oh, I can't remember what they say it is. CERN is, doing this stuff. And we have the ability to rewrite timelines. We have the ability to go back to a timeline that is affecting us in a negative way here, and literally flip the script, and it just pulls that trauma out. That's a fast unraveling. Like when I say I watch darkness unravel out of people's beings, that is a fast unraveling. So it's not just them. There are good guys too that are changing timelines, you know, for the good. But it ripples out, it ripples out through the fabric of time space, regardless of who does it. Man, and I lost your question. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I think you're getting to the answer as you talk about this, but yeah, my question was, I know it's a little weird, but it's like, who are these walk-ins and where do they come from? Are they parts of yourself, or are they our soul family, or are they parts of what?
So I know the souls that I walk in, like my relay team. I know that I've done this with more than once, right? And these are individual souls. These are actual personality exchanges, like complete my like I have a twang right now. Even though my family's from the South, I have a little tiny twang to my voice. Uh, and I hear it and I can't clear it, right? And it wasn't always there. And I'm like, clear all twang, clear all, because it's not the voice even that I remember from, prior. But what happens is, as we are clearing these old timelines that are ours, these old timelines where your soul, I have found people, speaking of enmeshment, it's not just enmeshment. I have seen these because it's particular bloodlines. It is these I don't even want to get into, because I don't want to make it sound like it's a hierarchical thing, but it's particular bloodlines that we walk into. And it's almost like you are walking into, how people have different gifts?
Yeah, you have to have like a DNA match, maybe? It's
Well,
hard because the DNA activation has to match.
just that. It's like say that my soul group, what we were all about is music. We are going to choose vehicles that have a slant toward being able to pick up music very easily. So when you are coming here to do supernatural stuff, to not swear, but when you're coming here to do supernatural things, when you are coming here in order to shift something you know, in a meaningful way, you're going to choose a vehicle that is most in alignment with that.
Mhm.
You are going to choose a bloodline that has a history of sight. You know, there are seers all the way back. There are, you know, alchemists all the way back, whatever it is. So we have particular bloodlines that we come into. I believe that there are teams like when it's walk-ins and it is the more of like a relay race. You have people that you've done this with before, and they need that the souls need to be similar enough to where it is an easier integration. At this point, I don't believe I'm going to have another personality exchange. I believe at this point, as I'm collapsing old timelines, I am embodying higher and higher aspects of my being. And this can be in a powerful way. I've had some amazing things happen in sessions with people, like where we've cleared something and they've gone from a place of, yeah, I can't see anything psychically, to them responding back, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just had this, you know, I can't believe
Yeah.
what I can see. So this rewriting of timelines, this unraveling, oh, I found people in stasis. I have found beings. I've found myself in a block of ice, like purposely put into a block of ice. And in the center of this tomb with 11 other beings around me. And so to bring myself out of stasis, because when we go into your inner world, when I say we travel through stargates, our heart is a stargate. This is where we journey. So this is where I journey with someone. So if I was journeying with you, we would travel through your stargate into your universe. The universe is inside you style, right? The universe, the YO universe. And in that YO universe, you have all the power to do whatever you need to do to transform your issues. And so, and I was taught that. That's why I am always talking about the imagination, because our imagination is so powerful. Our imagination is genuinely a superpower. If you can see yourself, if you have an illness and you can see yourself using whatever it is, even in the here and now, you use whatever it is. If you want to, you know, sprinkle unicorn glitter on yourself in your imagination in order to get rid of something, if you believe it, it'll happen. You'll get rid of that illness, right? So this is what we do on the inner universe. So I find myself in a block of ice. I melt the block of ice. I sit up like this in this image of me surrounded by these 11 other beings. And when that happened, when it melted and this being sits up in this journey, I audibly and like I feel it in my lungs, like I'm taking my first breath. And then I went in this journey and I awakened these other 11 beings that were being held in stasis.
Oh, wow.
And so we have been imprisoned in so many different ways. You know, we've been blown up. You want to talk about Atlantis and all of that. We've been enmeshed that way too. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways that we are going around collecting fragments, collapsing these old timelines. As I collapse these timelines where I'm held in stasis, I embody that aspect that was powerful enough to where somebody needed to imprison them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and you know, I personally have been in some of those situations, programs or whatnot, being used and stolen, and being sought after, and you know,
Definitely.
and I ask for help. You know, I work with other healers, but I'm, you know, I've never done it myself, which is quite the feat to be able to go through all of that and then eventually do it yourself and then help other people. I'd love to get to that point at some point, but right now it's like all I have is dream time. Like that's all I have is the dream time to give me these little crumbs of what's going on in the etherics, you know. Um, and shamanic journeying seems to be a good interest kind of interway between this realm and that realm, where you're kind of and I see it in hypnotherapy regression sessions as well.
Right.
Same
Right.
thing as journeying. It's
Yeah.
basically shamanic journeying in that capacity. And then when I would do that, I would see these people. They would go into these programs and these realms, and they'd begin to dismantle themselves there. And that's really empowering, when we can
Right.
believe. I mean, half the time people are going to believe, okay, it's an archetypal experience. It's a symbol of something in the subconscious psyche. We're gonna pull on Jung and all of that. But like, then that's okay. That's okay if you don't completely believe that it is what you're seeing. But then I feel like there's really no harm in believing that it's actually happening the way you're seeing it too, because if anything, that cements the idea of belief. And I think so much of us, so many of us, so much of this
Yeah.
of this realm is based on, well, if I'm not going to see it, I'm not going to believe it.
Right.
So belief is very fragile.
Right.
And it's the crux of half of this stuff, even being able to not only these people, I don't want to call it people, but these programs and these things that are enmeshing themselves with us, and then pulling from our energy, they're able to get away with it because we don't believe they exist.
Well, your belief is everything. And it's
Yeah.
not just so it's not just that what we don't believe in, it is what we do believe. So much of what I have experienced, like when I tell you that I would learn, like I would experience something that I'd go, well, what was that? And then go figure out later, oh, okay, I see it was this. I recognize that I might not have experienced the things that I had experienced if I knew better, you know, because I hear people all the time say, you can't do this thing that not only have I done, but I have been witnessed by others as I do it.
Oh, okay. Well, that's huge
Right.
too. Is when you're witnessed, it cements it more into the belief side of
Right.
things,
I
which
have
makes
had,
it more real.
right. I have had physical things that were in my body that were palpable from the outside. You could feel them in my body that were not organic to this body. I have asked them to be cleared and had somebody witness as they cleared to where they were no longer in my body anymore, and felt that, like, my body felt my body being worked on, going, oh my gosh, I think this thing is happening. I almost don't want to say it out loud, but um uh I said, this is being removed out of my body, and sitting there going, like in surprise, like I feel somebody's working on my body right now. I feel it.
Mhm.
Gotten up, gone to the bathroom, come back, and shown Travis, like, look what just happened. And oh my gosh. So, and these kind of experiences, when I say that I have experienced miraculous things that I recognize I needed to experience in order to have the faith that I do in everything else that I experienced.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I
So,
agree. I totally agree, but it is one of those things that also, depending on where you're located and the energy of the planet there, can either be a conduit for these experiences or can deter them, make them heavier. So have you noticed that depending on where you lived in different parts, the country seems like you moved around, that experiences would be at different gravities for you? Like sometimes it'd be
so
a little
I
easier to have.
I recognize that the relay team has been put in different spots at different times, right? And so many of us are here to transform the energy in the ley lines. And just by the nature of our ability to clear our channel enough to hold, and a lot of this, again, I believe is bloodline DNA, our ability to hold these higher frequencies wherever we are. But and many of us come with contracts to heal certain areas. So I know that I was called to that home with a portal under it bigger than the home so that I could learn to heal it. And I was so scared when I was told that, you know, and I called my shamanic healer and she's like, oh, just build a grid and, you know, like said it like it was something I should just know how to do,
Oh
that
God,
I
I've been there. I've been there.
did not know how to do. I'm like, I have no idea how to do that. So instead, I had to do what I imagined. You know, I imagined myself calling light from above me into the earth, and I saw it closing up this portal. We moved to, and it was a beautiful area, but I told you now, I mean, the reason I'm in my car is because the closest cell tower to our home, we're on 30 acres in the middle of the Siuslaw National Forest, right?
Wow.
So the nearest cell tower is 15 miles in either direction. That home the home we moved from before we manifested this property had 54 towers and 300 and something antennas within a 3-mile radius.
Wow.
And it was on the southernmost the highest southern peak in Eugene, and on a sacred mountain on the foothills of it. There was a cell antenna at the end of the street. On the other side of the street was a cemetery and a crematorium. 1 or 3/10 of a mile down the road was another cemetery. So if you think about the energetic aspects of this land with all of these like cemeteries and towers, and anytime you see them piling on towers,
Yeah.
piling in cemeteries or whatever, you know that you are on an energetically powerful piece of land. So I know that I was called to that land in
We're
order
trying
to
to
heal.
invert the energy there, is what you're saying. Like
Totally.
yeah.
Just like what I was saying earlier that they do with satanic ritual. This is like modern satanic ritual, right? They can put every kind of vibration through those towers into those ley lines. So I
And
believe,
satanic ritual, I mean, through a lot, I think it's like inversion energy, essentially. It comes down to it. You could break it down. It's not about like devil horns, but yeah, it's the inversion
right,
energy
yeah,
of
totally,
of God's creation. It just inverts it.
right, exactly. And so I feel like I had a contract with that land to heal it. And that once I healed that land, I was promoted out of it. It's like I
Oh,
did that, and then I was brought to a place. It's almost like these people that move around quite a bit, you are moved to environments that best support what you are to do next.
hmm.
So, you know, here's your next mission should you choose to accept it style. I don't know. That's what it reminds me of.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, because I used to be very psychic. I moved to Florida, and you know, it has its reputation. But anyway, it's very dense here. Very, very, very dense. And
Yeah.
in astrology, I track astrocartography, which is essentially your astrology chart on the map. And it's very interesting. I'm on my Pluto line, and Pluto is the planet of death and rebirth, transformation process. And I've been through many of those living here. But one of some of those transformations I've been through have been very dark, very, very, very dark, almost like I was blinded. I'm just blinded, and I have to live blind because I have to find my way back to belief. And it's like I have to find what that's like, you know, as opposed to just before you just have these beliefs and you take them for granted. And then when you're blinded, you lose belief, you lose faith because you're like, it's dark. There's no one here for me. I'm alone, or it's heavy, or why has God forsaken me, right? You go through these stuff. At least I do. Not everyone does, but I think a lot of people, they go through these dark nights of the soul, they call them, right? And so like I've been through those so many times
So
here.
clear all dark nights of the soul. So this is one of those new age terms that I don't know who started it, but
Well, I always thought is that the shamanic journey, the shamanic
every
journey
time
as
I
well.
hear dark night, I see a dark KNIGHT. It feels like a program. It
Okay.
feels like a program that's been put into circulation in order for us to say, oh, this must be what it is. And then as soon as you accept it, it's on.
Interesting. Because yeah, that's what I've been clearing a lot of, programming. Like
Yeah.
programs constantly kind of come up for me, and I've been seeing them over and over again. And that's when I actually started to get into Ascension Glossary when I moved here in 2017. And as I explored energetic synthesis, and that's when it all started. And so,
Right.
so since then, I was working with some of those concepts, understanding them, trying to understand what, and then feeling them out, and then seeing them occur in my life, and then having dismantled various programming. Um, but it has taught me a lot. And sometimes I feel like, when am I going to leave this place? Because it's so heavy all the time. And then I moved to a new place, a new home, and the energy has been very, very dark and dense. And I remember when I was scouting out my new home, I was driving around listening to my old astrology teacher talking about the difference between a galactic shaman and an earth shaman. And I thought that was fairly interesting because I never really heard of a difference between them. I remember feeling galactic shaman. That makes sense. There's something about that that makes sense. What is that? And I mean, I don't declare shamanism. I have never been trained as a shaman, and
Right.
I follow and I study, what others have done, and I, track it. But the galactic shaman works at these multidimensional levels. It's not just Earth, and it's
Right.
not just the astral, but like, it seems like a lot of earth shamans will work with the astral, and they understand the astral realm. But like when think about 10, 11, 12, 24, 49D, that's more of a galactic shaman. They're bringing in all these multidimensional layers from various timelines, various, parallel lives, parallel programming, programs, pieces of our soul and ourself, in a way that's a lot more interdimensional, if that makes sense. And I thought, wow, that's fairly interesting.
I
And
mean, we're all interdimensional.
we
we're
are, but then there's different people who, I mean, there's different beings who work on the earth plane more, and there's beings that work more in the interdimensional planes.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you first off that you can have your sight and your connection back anytime you want it.
I've asked for it many
I recognize that, and it's interesting because there is yeah, we'll talk. We'll talk. I know we're gonna do a session. We'll talk.
times.
But that is something you can clear. One of the things I try not to do, I spoke to you earlier about feeling overwhelmed when people would tell me these bigger things like, oh, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, here's what you're here to do. And it would overwhelm me from where I was. And so what was the source of the overwhelm? The source of the overwhelm was me putting faith, me putting belief in whatever it was they said, which was, they weren't telling me bad things, but they were telling me things that I really wasn't ready to embody. And so it just felt overwhelming. The opposite can happen too. Somebody can say, oh, your sight is not there because of this, that, and this. And you're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And as soon as you're nodding, it reinforces that. And what I have done and what I still do, and I actually encourage people that sit with me every time I have a session, I call my consent back afterward. I change all my locks and I give myself the only key, right? Because I've had beings siphoning on off me, and I know the folks didn't mean, they aren't consciously doing it. These healers that I've gone to sit with or had sessions with, that later I found in my energy so hard. I'm like, why am I feeling this way, or why am I feeling that way? And then I go in and look, and I am I've been tethered, and I'm being siphoned. I'm having my energy siphoned, my vision siphoned, my peace siphoned, whatever it is. So calling our consent back, calling our belief back from anybody that's held space for us, calling our belief back from any paradigm or any subject, any energy that we have put it into, that is not in alignment with our highest timeline, our highest good, right?
And with that, I think that's a perfect way to end our conversation is that we all know that we are sovereign beings, but we have to call it.
Yeah.
We have to call in ourselves and call in our energy and bring it back. um,
Yeah.
Commander Space. So, and
Yeah.
so I didn't get a chance to introduce you, but if you're still
Okay.
watching, thanks for watching with us. This is Aspects of Energetics, and today we have Holly, and she's from Your Soul Remembered. That's and you can find her on Instagram, and she also has a YouTube channel, and I will link those below. If you want to get in touch with her and get a session, she offers sessions, right?
Yeah.
And
Website.
yeah, you can check out her blog and her website as well. I'll put all those things down under. So thank you so much, Holly, for having this conversation today. It's been really
Thank
cool.
you. And I know we'll speak soon.
Yes, definitely. We'll stay in touch. All right, everybody. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.